This is Jonathan Gilliam back on the Experts Podcast. The truth has arrived. And day two of the Republican Convention, or the amazing, I don't even want to call it the Donald Trump show, because what's interesting about the way that they've done this is that, and I think it shows a lot about who the president is and about what, how much he cares about this country. The past two nights have really been a celebration of the nation and of the people in it, and in President Trump and what he's done for the nation. This is a very interesting thing. I've met a few people like this in my life, and I've been all around a lot of places. I've traveled all over this country for many years, and I've met a few people like this who, look, there's no doubt about it. President Trump, some people would call him a narcissist. Other people would call him very confident. But the interesting thing about the guy is that he has a side of him that is truly caring. And it comes out when he does anything for the country, it just explodes. You just see it. You can't miss it, how much he loves the country. And I know there's going to be probably liberals that listen to this and they're going to be rolling over backwards right now, but you got a problem if you don't see this. It's not a statement on whether or not you support him. It's the fact that if you don't see how much he loves the country, you're crazy. And I've met a few people like that who have this, over the top type of personality, but when you get right down to it, they're just great people. And he's got a warm side to him, and and a caring side about this country, and it's come to light in the past 2 days. Now, for a lot of us, that isn't a mystery. It's not something that we just discovered. As I talked about yesterday, and I've talked about before, one of the reasons why I supported him on Sean Hannity's radio show when I was hosting it back in 2016, before Sean even came out saying he supported him, I was supporting the president and pushing him forward as somebody not only has experience, but somebody that has great kids who love him and whose employees love the guy. I even talked to a guy who got fired, but still loved him as an employer. So that guy was an executive at Trump organization. But I want to play, like I did last night, a few sound bites, and I want to tease this because I want to go over this here in a little bit. But I had a discussion with somebody that has been following me for a while, and we were discussing my faith, and this individual happens to be Jewish. I'm Christian, and I felt as though it would be a good thing for me, especially in light of some of the things that I heard on this second day of the Republican Convention. I felt like it would be important for me to describe the way I see things. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. Actually, that would probably be a great show in and of itself. And I don't want to take away from this convention, but I do want to tell you my thoughts on what I've seen from studying religions. I remember when I started college back in 88, I planned on majoring in philosophy and religions. And so I took a lot of religious classes and not just took classes, but got to know. I actually went out and did my research. I went and met people who were of different religions. I studied on my own to find out, what is the core values of these religions and what are the stories that they follow. And so I felt, after having this conversation, this might be something that I explain to you, and it will help you understand who I am and what I feel, and potentially help you understand the reality of Christianity and not just Christianity, but other religions and the way I've seen it. And it's interesting because I thought about doing that, not just because of this conversation that I was having, but also because of this convention and the fact that it is so God-centered. It is so American citizenry centered. It's not like I'm watching a convention. I mean, if you watched any of the Democrat convention, it was like watching cable access television by Black Lives Matter and the communist left. And it was terrible. And it was, by and large, a bunch of celebrities and their political celebrities. I hate the fact that politicians are celebrities, and that's all it was. Them talking about, their special interests, them talking about how, everyone's oppressed, them talking about how evil the president is, and, on and on about it. They just make this stuff up. And then when you watch Twitter, last week when the Democrat convention was going, and you watch the news, I've had this discussion with Rick Unger before, who's liberal and I'm conservative, and we've had this discussion how we can watch something and have two totally different views. But I don't know how you could have watched last week the DNC convention and not walked away from it thinking, what is that mess? A total disaster of a convention. They're not even a political body. This is what the media is not pointing out. It's not like the Democrats are even a regular political party anymore. They are literally the Communist Party. And when you hear the media, like even on Fox News, they're discussing, election 2020, and they're acting like it's just another election between the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, if you watched that last week, it just validated everything that you've seen, where they're burning down Portland and all these places. There was another thing tonight, I don't know if it's in Portland or Wisconsin, where Black Lives Matter supporters took I think it's quick dry cement. I thought it was called Ready Dryer, but it's quick dry cement. And they tried to cement a precinct to shut the doors, and I don't know, I guess the windows too, but they were trying to keep the cops from getting out, and then they tried to set it on fire. Whew. That's what this world has come to. That's what this country has come to. And that's what was reflected in the DNC last week. You didn't see anything about God. You saw God taken out of the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's very interesting when I hear this. Now, I'm going to play just a couple of sound bites. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I have to get on the road. I'm going to be speaking in Chicago with the Will County Republican Party. And if you're anywhere around there, I'm going to be speaking there Friday. And it's a fundraiser. You should come out there. And it's going to be an amazing experience. I'm going to also be at another location, which I'll talk about this week. But the shows are going to be a little bit shorter because I'm going to actually be on the road and doing the shows from the road. So let's get started with the sound bites. And let's start with, the opening video. I was going to start the show with it, but I'm not exactly sure how the podcasting platforms, you can use stuff on the news as long as you're commenting on it. But if I play at the beginning, I don't know if they would think that, I'm using that to promote my show, so I didn't play at the beginning. But I want to start with a video. They had one video last night that they played over and over again, and John Voight is the narrator. I believe it's John Voight. And last night versus tonight, when I was talking about yesterday about how important it was that you listen to Maximos Alvarez, I think his name was, that was the Cuban speaker from last night. I hope I got his name right. And how important that is, that you watch that speech. But the whole theme of last night was about the great America. And tonight it was more centered on the individuals, on the citizenry. That's what's so incredible about this. It's not like I'm watching something to promote Donald Trump to get elected. It's more like I'm watching all these incredible things that we've forgotten about this nation, about the people. And so they started out with a video, and I'm going to play the sound bite of the video in its entirety. It's just a few minutes long. and it sets the tone for the entire evening. And I'll play that now.
Behold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Without life, there can be no liberty. Without liberty, there is no happiness. Without equality, there is no opportunity. America has strived since its founding to promote equality under the law, to correct injustices, and to ensure opportunity for all. It is a work in progress, not always perfect. Some look at American opportunity and see only problems. They want equal outcome, not equal opportunities. They criticize without solutions, demand wealth without work. Their ways are historical failures evidenced by tyranny and poverty, a prevailing darkness in every country it has been tried. The American dream, inspired by American opportunity, is the engine of entrepreneurship.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike.
The inspiration to the greatest inventions, the highest achievements, and establishing a quality of life second to none, providing jobs, creating futures, fulfilling dreams. In America, opportunity preserves individual freedom. It leads to exceptionalism. It's a bright, shining light, an example for all to see. Tonight, we explore together America, land of opportunity.
And isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what it's all about? See, that's the difference between last week and this week, is that, and I don't know about you, I mean, just listening to that, I literally have chills on my arm right now, because they nail it every single night. And it about the opportunity. This tonight about the opportunity is what they're talking about. America, the land of opportunity. Last week, it's not about opportunity. The Democrats and the way they feel has nothing to do with equal opportunity. It really has nothing to do with equal at all. It has everything to do with getting you angry and getting you divided so they can control the way you think by feeding you this anger, these anger pills. That's what they do. And it's just a stark contrast. No God on the left, God on the right. No putting citizens above all else on the right, not only wanting to divide the citizenry on the left so they can control them. I mean, this goes back and forth. Opportunity. In the United States, you have opportunity to be great. As far as the left is concerned, that opportunity is not equal, because a person can't say, I want to be this, and just automatically be it. That's the great lie, that equal opportunity allows you 100% guarantee that you're going to be whatever you want, have whatever you want. That is not opportunity. Opportunity is simply this, that when you wake up in the morning, or if you want to stay up all night and work harder than the other person, you will have the chance to get what you're going for. And the harder you try, the deeper you dig, the better the chance is that you'll get it. That's opportunity. Not according to the left. It's not equal. You know, they have to bring it up. You know, this person's gay or this person's black, and they don't have, and the people are prejudiced against them. And there's not, listen, if it was the case where because you're gay or black or a woman or whatever else that they're going to bring up, that you have no chance of being something, well, that argument was completely invalidated for themselves in the two terms of Barack Hussein Obama in office, the highest political office that you can have. And the fact that their criminal that they had running last year was a female named Hillary Clinton. who argues that women can't break through the glass ceiling. Yet she was neck and neck for president of the United States. This is how different these are, and how what we're seeing this week is it's an incredibly well-produced example every single night of different things that make this country great. And on the left, it was like cable access by people who were pissed off, bitter, and full of hate and lacking God. Now, I'm only going to, like I said, I'm only going to play, and I'm going to take these out of order, okay? Because there was a couple of different things that I saw, and I want to save one of the best things for last. I'm not going to play this really in its entirety. I would recommend that you go and that you watch this, but I can't remember her name. Let me just play the beginning of this here. They had several different speakers. Let's see here.
My name is Abby Johnson, and I spent 8 years working for Planned Parenthood, but today I'm a pro-life activist. When I was in college, Planned
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and play it. I want you to listen to this. It's very important.
Parenthood approached me at a volunteer fair. They talked about helping women in crisis and their commitment to keep abortion safe, legal, and rare.
Now, we know that's a lie, and she found it out the hard way that was a lie. They're saying that they want to be able to provide these abortions, that it's rare that they happen, but the service that they provide is necessary. That's the way they sell it. And she was a college student, and they got her to volunteer and then come over, and then just listen to the story.
I was convinced to volunteer and later offered a full-time job as a medical assistant before my promotion to director of the clinic. I truly believed I was helping women, but things drastically changed in 2009. In April, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award and invited to their annual gala where they present the Margaret Sanger Award, named for their founder. And Margaret Sanger was a racist who believed in eugenics. Her goal when founding Planned Parenthood was to eradicate the minority population.
Now, can you believe that? That is all true. That is all true. You can go search that. And that is a company that gets federal funds. They get your taxpayer dollars. Now, imagine if anybody else tried to start something up like that right now that basically went after eradicating minorities, and that got found out right now. How crazy that would be. Try going and tweeting something that's even remotely, it doesn't even have to be racist. It could just be a little racy and see what happens. But this is a company that gets federal funds, your taxpayer dollars, and was built on eugenics by a racist. But the Democrats and the liberals fully support this. Mind-boggling. Absolutely. It just blows my mind.
Today, almost 80% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are strategically located in minority neighborhoods. And every year, Planned Parenthood celebrates its racist roots by presenting the Margaret Sanger Award. Later in August, my supervisor assigned me a new quota to meet, an abortion quota.
Now that is sick and evil. Here's the company that got her to volunteer, and I'm calling it a company versus a nonprofit or whatever they want to call themselves, because the fact is they do profit from this, and they're profiting from murder. But this was a woman that was recruited in college and told that these were rare, and they just were providing a necessary service to ensure safety for women that are having issues or complications, or that they just have nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. But that's not the case. She's being told now that she has a quota to meet. They have to have a certain amount of abortions. Ugh.
I was expected to sell double the abortions performed the previous year. When I pushed back, underscoring Planned Parenthood's public-facing goal of decreasing abortions, abortion is how we make our money. I was reprimanded and told, but the tipping point.
Okay, something's being cut here in this PBS NewsHour this is the video that I pulled up. That's very interesting. I don't know if you heard that or not, but that was some selective editing there that's going on. Very interesting. Let me pull this back and see if it does it again.
Later in August, my supervisor assigned me a new quota to meet, an abortion quota. I was expected to sell double the abortions performed the previous year. When I pushed back, underscoring Planned Parenthood's public-facing goal of decreasing abortions, abortion is how.
Okay, this is just weird. It appears to me that this has been edited by PBS. That is bizarre. And it's not just technical malfunction.
We make our money. I was reprimanded.
That's interesting. I'm going to stop the video for a second. I'm going to see if I can find another version of this so that I can pull that up. Well, let's see here. Here's C-SPAN. Let me pull this up.
Who work on the Hill. And
yeah, hold on a second here. Let's see here. Should be right here. See if C-SPAN edits this. Stand by. That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. That was blatant editing. If this doesn't become a story, I'm going to be shocked. Okay, let's see here.
Strategically located in minority, helping women in crisis, and their commitment to keep abortion safe, legal, and rare. I was convinced to volunteer and later offered a full-time job as a medical assistant before my promotion to director of the clinic. I truly believed I was helping women, but things drastically changed in 2009. In April, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year award and invited to their annual gala where they...
Man, that is just not an award I would ever want. That's a horrific award. I'm going to skip ahead here and see if we can get this.
...roots by presenting the Margaret Sanger Award. Later in August, my supervisor assigned me a new quota to meet, an abortion quota. I was expected to sell double the abortions performed the previous year. When I pushed back, underscoring Planned Parenthood's public-facing goal of decreasing abortions, I was reprimanded and told abortion is how we make our money.
Now that, what you just heard, was edited out of the PBS version. Wow. That is crazy. I'm actually experiencing this as I do this podcast. That I just pulled up PBS because I pulled it up last night and they played it. But this is pretty interesting. Another taxpayer suck. PBS. All right, let's keep going. I'll touch on that. We'll see. I'm going to reach out to some media people and see if they know about that.
But the tipping point came a month later when a physician asked me to assist with an ultrasound-guided abortion. Nothing prepared me for what I saw on the screen. An unborn baby fighting back, desperate to move away from the suction. And I'll never forget what the doctor said next. "Beam me up, Scotty." The last thing I saw was a spine twirling around in the mother's womb before succumbing to the force of the suction.
Now, I'm not going to play any more of her speech. That is, I didn't warn you about that. I didn't warn you that was going to be that harsh. And I didn't warn you because I want you to feel the impact of it. She said that she could see the fetus trying to get away from that suction. That's a living, breathing, alive entity. You would never hear this in the Democrat convention. Never. It's that's hard to listen to. Actually, I'm going to play. There's just a little bit more here I want to play. Stand by.
On October 6th, I left the clinic, looking back only to remember why I now advocate so passionately for life. I founded and currently run And Then There Were None, a nonprofit organization that's helped nearly 600 abortion workers transition out of the industry. For most people who consider themselves pro-life, abortion is abstract. They can't even conceive of the barbarity. They don't know about the products of conception room and abortion clinics where infant corpses are pieced back together to ensure nothing remains in the mother's wombs, or that we joked and called it the pieces of children room. You see, for me, abortion is real. I know what it sounds like. I know what abortion smells like. Did you know abortion even had a smell? I've been the perpetrator to these babies, to these women, and I now support President Trump because he has done more for the unborn than any other president.
This is just amazing. This is amazing commentary. It's an amazing story. It points out the importance of life. I'm sure when the founding fathers, listen, they've had abortion ever since women were able to get pregnant. And now the technology that they try to make it seem like it's no big deal, as you can see, it is a big deal. It is a big deal. And it's horrific. That's some story. Celebrating life starts in the womb. Now let's move on to Nicholas Sandmann, who is a great kid. I mean, I've only heard him speak a couple times before, but he did a really, really great job today. And there was this idiot on Twitter. He's so irrelevant. I don't even remember his name, but I'm going to pull up Twitter real quick. I keep saying it's unbelievable a lot today. You know, I'm kind of blown away when I say that every now and then. This idiot, Joe Lockhart, I guess he's a CNN analyst, has a podcast, which we won't listen to, but he says after watching, he says, I'm watching tonight because it's important, but I don't have to watch this snot-nosed entitled kid from Kentucky. What a freaking bitch this guy is. And that's what I tweeted. I said, you're the biggest bitch on Twitter. Let's listen to the story of Sandmann and listen to what he has to say. And you determine who's snot-nosed, not this kid.
It began as a class trip to join thousands for the annual March for Life. These Catholic young men traveled from Kentucky to stand up for what they believed in. But what happened was something very different.
Crackers with Make America Great hat on. You little dirty crackers, your day coming. Young Klansmen, look at our Make America Great Again hat.
Social media, the news, and even celebrities launched a campaign of persecution that was completely false against a boy in a Make America Great Again hat.
The MAGA hat carries a certain connotation that provokes a conditioned reaction.
I blame that kid. What a little crap.
Everyone that sees that smug look wants to punch that kid.
Nicholas Sandmann received death threats, and his school was forced to close. Tonight, Nicholas tells his story.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Sandmann, and I'm the teenager who was defamed by the media after an encounter with a group of protesters on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial last year. Before I begin, I'd like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to share some of my story and why it matters so much to this November's election. In 2019, I attended the March for Life in Washington, D.C., where I demonstrated in defense of the unborn. Later that day, I bought a Make America Great Again hat because our president, Donald Trump, has distinguished himself as one of the most pro-life presidents in the history of our country, and I wanted to express my support for him too. Looking back now, how could I have possibly imagined that the simple act of putting on that red hat would unleash hate from the left and make myself the target of network and cable news networks nationwide. Being from Kentucky, the birthplace of Abraham Lincoln, my classmates and I visited the Lincoln Memorial. I found myself face to face with Nathan Phillips and other professional protesters looking to turn me into the latest poster child showing why Trump is bad, while the media portrayed me as an aggressor with a relentless smirk on my face. In reality, the video confirms I was standing with my hands behind my back and an awkward smile on my face that hid two thoughts. One, don't do anything that might further agitate the man banging a drum in my face. And two, I was trying to follow a family friend's advice, never to do anything to embarrass your family, your school, or your community. Before I knew what was happening, it was over. One of Mr. Phillips' fellow agitators yelled out, "We got him. It's all right here on video. And we won, Grandpa." What I thought was a strange encounter quickly developed into a major news story, complete with video footage. My life changed forever in that one moment. The full war machine of the mainstream media revved up into attack mode. They did so without researching the full video of the incident, without ever investigating Mr. Phillips' motives, or without ever asking me for my side of the story. And do you know why? Because the truth was not important. Advancing their anti-Christian, anti-conservative, anti-Donald Trump narrative was all that mattered. And if advancing their narrative ruined the reputation and future of a teenager from Covington, Kentucky, well, so be it. That would teach him not to wear a MAGA hat. I learned what was happening to me had a name. It was called being canceled, as in annulled, as in revoked, as in made void. Canceled is what's happening to people around this country who refuse to be silenced by the far left. Many are being fired, humiliated, or even threatened. And often, the media is a willing participant. But I would not be canceled. I fought back hard to expose the media for what they did to me, and I won a personal victory. While much more must be done, I look forward to the day that the media returns to providing balanced, responsible, and accountable news coverage. I know President Trump hopes for that too. And I know you'll agree with me when we say that no one in this country has been a victim of unfair media coverage more than President Donald Trump. In November, I believe this country must unite around a president who calls the media out and refuses to allow them to create a narrative instead of reporting the facts. I believe we must join a president who will challenge the media to return to objective journalism. And together, I believe we must all embrace our First Amendment rights and not hide in fear of the media or from the tech companies or from the outrage mob either. This is worth fighting for. This is worth voting for. And this is what Donald Trump stands for. Thank you all for listening to me tonight. And one more thing. Let's make America great again.
As he puts on the red "Make America Great" hat again. Love this kid. So again, another speech that gives you chills. This idiot on Twitter that has, I don't know, a lot of followers and has kids called him, a snot-nosed brat. And there was nothing snot-nosed about that. That was so well laid out. And if you see the video, again, I recommend that you go and look at this stuff. I pulled up C-SPAN. That seems to not be edited. And these are incredible shows that you need to watch. All the speeches. I'm just hitting the highlights of these speeches. And Nick Sandmann, that really wasn't a speech. That's called public speaking. That was a story about what happened to him. And it was articulate. And, I mean, he's a young kid. I think he's 14 years old. He's a young man. And he's going to go a long ways in life, I think, after seeing that. I want to finish up now because I got to cut and get some rest before I get on the road. I wanted to just play this story about this incredible man who was in a lot of trouble as a young guy. And I'm going to let this play in its entirety. I'll break in and out of it with some comments, and then I'm going to share at the end of this the reality about the way I see things when it comes to Christianity, and well, I'll just give you some of my opinions on this stuff. So just I tell you what, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and then I'm going to play that video and talk about this. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I know every night when you are morning or daytime, whenever you listen to this podcast, you're hearing me talk about Sheep No More, the Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I'm telling you, watching what's going on around the country, now it's in Wisconsin, it's still going on in Portland. It's incredible how every day in Portland they decide whether or not it's going to be a riot, and they announce it's a riot. Well, I know people who've been in and around those riots because they're trying to get somewhere, and it's one of the most scary things that they've ever been through. But you don't have to be caught up in that. If you do the proper assessment on your environment and you know that you have to go from point A to point B and these riots are occurring, you need to assess that situation and determine, is it worth you going? Is there another route you can take? And if there's some reason that you have to get even close to this type of a thing, then at least you can have predetermined plans of action. Well, what happened if you're with your family and the riot breaks out and gets around you and you guys have to flee your car? Do you have a predetermined location that you're going to go to, an initial one and a secondary one if that one's taken and that's in the middle of the protest as well? You see, this isn't rocket science. You don't have to go through SEAL training or go through the FBI to understand how to do this stuff. You just need to read my book, Sheep No More, the Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. And you will understand how attackers see you. You will understand how you're targeted, the methods and tactics, techniques, and procedures that they use. And then you can do it to yourself. You can actually look at yourself from that perspective. Once you have that information, you can turn around and build accurate defenses, mitigation strategies, and mitigate the vulnerabilities and plans of action like I just talked about. Sheep No More, the Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It has 2 fillable workbooks that you can get as well, the Threat Assessment and the Defense Assessment workbooks, and for your children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. It's a book of pictures that have awareness and safety lessons and communication built into the pictures. And the parent goes to the website, teamlittlebigs.com, and gets the lesson plans. Now, you can go look at the lesson plans right now. They're free. They're online. But what you can do then is you order the book, and the kids get that, and that's how you build awareness, communication, and safety in your children. Let's get back to the show. All right. I ran out of music on that live read. I get a little long-winded. I know it's hard to believe that, but okay. So I'm going to start out with this, the video about this guy who was in a lot of trouble, and I'm going to let the video tell its story. I'm not going to try to tell the story for him because it just wouldn't do any justice. But it's the guy who gets pardoned. He gets pardoned on television, and believe it or not, Trump is being criticized for this and being made to look like a bad guy for pardoning a guy. And then they actually swore some people in as well as American citizens, and he's being criticized by the left. You would think that he did something just terribly wrong. Okay, so let's start this video, and I'm going to this audio for you, and I'm going to let this play out. I may break in here and there to say some things, but this is very important that you need to hear this. So let's start it.
I had always had this unshakable sense that I know that life has to be more than what it was I've been living. I caught my very first felony conviction at 16 years old, and that type of behavior had led me into more and more arrests, getting in trouble until the age of 37 years old. I was arrested for a string of bank robberies. And based off of my criminal history, there is a potential that a federal judge can sentence me up to 23 years in a maximum security United States federal penitentiary. And in that moment, I played a let's make a deal with God. And I asked God to climb into the robe of that judge. Whether it's 10 years or 50 years, I'm going to invest the rest of my life serving you. And I stood before that federal judge. Judge Mahan took his glasses off, leaned back and said, I don't know why I'm going to do this. But he said, I'm not going to give you what you deserve. Then he gave me a lesser sentence. And as I laid on that stainless steel cell, shackled by my hands and my feet, I heard God utter into my spirit, my son, I honored what you asked me to do. He said, never forget the promise that you made to me. And ever since that day, I got up off that floor and my life went in a 180-degree turn in the other direction.
When John got that sentence, I just shook my head. I said, wow, John, you are destined for bigger things than prison. My name is Richard Beasley. I was an FBI special agent for about 25 and a half years.
It was something about his demeanor when he walked into that room. I had this feeling like everything's gonna be okay.
Then when he got out, he gave me a call and says, hey, Rich, let's have lunch. So I met him at the McDonald's, and he's got a Bible with him. I've seen that before where guys have used a Bible as a prop. It took me about 30 seconds to understand that this was not a prop with John. He was a changed guy from the man that I arrested, several years before.
When I saw the way that he treated me fairly, I saw the man behind the suit. I started thinking, man, if that worked for me with this law enforcement officer, how can I multiply that and get more law enforcement officers involved so that we can impact this on a larger scale? President Trump, he had made a bunch of promises. Let me just be transparent. When he first started talking about the things he was going to do, I'm sitting there going, wait a minute here. I mean, is he serious? Because everything that he was saying that he wanted to do was the stuff that needs to be done. And before he walked out that meeting that day, I promised I'll make it out there to, come speak at one of your graduations. I heard that they were phenomenal. When he stood there in that graduation and he went out of his way to shake the hand of every one of those 29 graduates, set them on a whole nother vista of life because they had the office of the President of the United States. The promises that he made was promises that he kept.
2 years ago, I was honored to tell John Ponder's story of transformation in the Rose Garden on the National Day of Prayer. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome him back to the White House. John's life is a beautiful testament to the power of redemption. John grew up without his father. As he tells it, my mother was strong, but she wasn't able to keep us out of the gangs and off of the streets, and they were violent streets. At the age of 38, he was arrested for bank robbery. While John was in prison, he began reading the Bible and listening to Christian radio. One day he heard Reverend Billy Graham on the radio proclaim, Jesus wants to be Lord of your life. On that day, John dedicated his life to Christ. He spent the rest of his time in prison studying the Bible. When he was released, he heard a knock at his door. It was the officer who put him in jail, FBI Special Agent Richard Beasley, who said, I want you to know that I've been praying for you. Now, Richard and John are best friends, and we are grateful that Richard is here with us today. In the last 10 years since John was released, he has created one of the most successful reentry programs, Hope for Prisoners in Las Vegas. I was glad to speak there earlier this year. As John says, Hope for Prisoners is a movement that began as a dream in a tiny prison cell and is now making a difference in the lives of thousands, truly bringing hope that there is an opportunity and a community that is waiting and willing to offer them a second chance. John, we honor your devotion to showing returning citizens that they are not forgotten. We believe that each person is made by God for a purpose. I will continue to give all Americans, including former inmates, the best chance to build a new life and achieve their own American dream, and a great American dream it is. Now I'd like to ask John and Richard to say a few words.
Now, first of all, that's incredible. That whole video that I just played for you, you can watch it on YouTube, is God-centered. You would never have heard anything like that. And there's no pushing of God and religion on you. This is the reality right here, folks, of a life of a man who was going down the wrong way, and he made a decision. He listened to the calling, to that whisper that's happening in his ear, and he answered that calling. And this is the type of thing that the president is pulling in onto the RNC convention, and he's getting criticized for this by the left. It criticized. Remarkable, but listen to these two guys talk.
I can't tell you how grateful I am to have the opportunity to speak here today. Not so long ago, my life was running from the police, fearing the police, and avoiding the police. Not because of anything that the police had done to me personally, but due to the animosity I had allowed to grow inside of me, making me believe that they were my enemy.
Now okay, I know I keep saying this. That's mind-blowing that was on this show. And that's the stark difference right there between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. I'm no fan of the Republican establishment. I've told you that. I'm quite honest about that. I've met a lot of people that are in the Republican establishment, and they just make my skin crawl. But this right here, this is what the Republican Party needs to become. This is the foundation they need to have, and this will never be heard on the communist left, ever. Never again.
But today,
and if you do hear it, they're faking it.
Praise God, I am filled with hope, a proud American citizen who has been given a second chance. My transformation began in a prison cell where I found myself a 3-time convicted felon facing yet another sentence. I gave my life to Jesus and made him a promise that I would spend the rest of my days helping others like me. My first help and support came from the unlikeliest of places, the FBI agent who arrested me, Richard Beasley. He is now a dear friend and has been a source of encouragement to me throughout my entire journey. I am grateful for the men and women of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department who volunteer their time to people who are returning to our local community after incarceration. These are the real-life heroes who put their lives on the line every day, armed with the promise that they made to protect and to serve, have made a tremendous impact in the lives of men and women reintegrating back into our society. My hope for America is that formerly incarcerated people will be afforded the opportunity to take advantage of the fact that we live in a nation of second chances. My hope for America is that law enforcement and people in the communities across our country can come together and realize that as Americans, we have more in common than we have differences. My hope for our great nation is to continue on this path we are on of being the most prosperous country in the world.
I'm so proud of John with his life's turnaround and for all the lives that he's helped to change. It may be hard to believe that as a retired FBI agent, one of my best friends is a person I arrested for bank robbery. When I met John 15 years ago, he was angry, scared, frustrated, and anxious about his future. On the drive to prison, I stopped at a convenience store and bought John a coffee and a donut. After he was sentenced, John sent me a necktie and a note thanking me for treating him like a gentleman. 5 years later, when he got out of prison, John called me and wanted to meet for lunch. He was a different man. He talked about starting a re-entry program for men and women coming out of prison. Over time, John earned the trust and respect of the law enforcement community, many of whom volunteer in John's Hope for Prisoners program. I'm grateful for President Trump's commitment to criminal justice reform. On February 20th of this year, he was the guest speaker at the Hope for Prisoners graduation. He stayed much longer than scheduled to hand out diplomas to the 29 men and women who graduated that day. What a sight. the most important man in the free world, shaking hands and pledging his administration's support to ex-offenders. Their families were there, the community was there. What a great second chance. I also appreciate President Trump's support for law enforcement. I always felt like I had strong support as an FBI agent, but there's nothing worse than knowing you're being second-guessed when you're doing your job. In certain parts of our country right now, law enforcement doesn't feel like they have the support from their local leaders. They're being painted with a broad brush, unfairly, with calls for defunding. But as President Trump knows, the overwhelming percentage of law enforcement officers are good, smart people who are doing their jobs very well. And they can change the world working with people like John. Thank you.
So now I'd like to invite John's wife, Jamie, to join us as I grant John, I'm not sure you know this, a full pardon.
Wow.
So I don't know if you know that, Jamie. Come on over here. It's just an honor. And you have done incredible work.
Thank you, sir.
And all of Las Vegas and all of Nevada and all of every place in this country is very proud of you, the job you've done, bringing people back. And you're right, I was supposed to be there for 5 minutes. I stayed for an hour and a half because it was so interesting to me. Congratulations to both.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Richard, thank you very much for the job you do.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Now he's signing the pardon. You can hear him signing that signature that he has.
Okay. I think I'll give it to Jamie. What do you think?
He gave his wife the pen. So there you go. That is just John Ponder. What an incredible story and testimony to Jesus, and an example of leadership by President Trump and by the FBI agent who I just forgot his name. I think I can pull it up here. Let me see here. Richard Beasley. God bless you, brother. You make hard to find things in the FBI right now that make me proud. There's a few of you out there, and thank you for that's an incredible story. Fidelity, bravery, and integrity. That is a quintessential example right there, Richard Beasley. Now, I want to tell you real quick. I was having, as I talked about earlier, I had this conversation with a friend who's Jewish, and we were discussing, the differences in what I feel or what I believe and what they believe, and I find this fascinating with a lot of Jewish people that I talk to, and they don't really know the story of Jesus. It's just a different religion. It's how Christians would look at Muslims or Jewish people and Judaism, and we don't really know and listen to what other people believe. And I find also often, quite frankly, that most people in other religions, and I've studied these religions, they know what they have to do, the works that they have to do in order to remain consistent in their faith. And that's their faith. One thing that I definitely learned from studying all religions, and when I was in college, one of the things I did was I prayed to God and I said, Lord, I'm going to look at all the different religions because I want truth. And I'm not running from you. I'm not trying to hide from you. I'm seeking the truth because I was born in a Christian family. And I prayed to God and I said, Lord, what good would it do for me to just follow you blindly? I have to see the reality of what else is out there. And this is one of the reasons why atheists and people who are agnostic are fascinating to me as well, because let's start with them, for instance. One thing I definitely learned from studying this and praying and then going and meeting people and listening to what they're not just telling them, but listening to what they had to say about how they believed. One thing I definitely realized right off the bat is that atheists and agnostic, and I'm definitely going to say atheist, I would say agnostics are very curious. Atheists are very argumentative, most of the time, argumentative, I should say. And it's very intriguing, the fact that they would argue about trying to convince you that there is no God if there really was no God and if they truly believe that. The reason they argue so hard is because they're trying to convince themselves. Because instinctually, inside all of us, we know that God exists. That's why we seek him. even if you lived in the middle of nowhere and you never had contact, I can guarantee you, and I know this because we know there are tribes out there, and we've looked at the different, groups of people that have lived throughout history, and they always seek God. They always have an instinctual drive to know their creator. So if you're an atheist and you're listening to this and you disagree with me, think about why you disagree with me. The very fact that you have an opinion on it shows me that you have an instinctual understanding that there is a God and that your instinct says you should know him. And the very fact that you disagree with me means that you're taking a stand. And as soon as you start to argue with people, your whole belief system is invalidated. Because why would you argue with somebody so intensely to prove to them that nothing exists? If they want to believe it, what's wrong with it? Why would you try to prove otherwise? Because you care about them? I don't think so. I've never had a conversation with an atheist that said, I love you, man. I care about you. That's why I'm trying to show you that there is no God. That just doesn't happen. That's not the angle that they come from. They try to ridicule or belittle or say that it doesn't exist. It's man-made. It's created. If it was man-made and created, the people that live in the middle of nowhere would not have the same intent on knowing their creator that those who actively engage in the search for their creator have. Now, with that out of the way, I learned by going through all these religions and studying and listening to what people have to say and what they believe, that all religions except for one practice works. You have to do this amount of things in order to be accepted into heaven or considered clean. And this goes back to basically when you can find religions starting. It doesn't matter if they believe in multiple gods or if they believe in one God or if they are on one side of the world or the other or throughout history. Works have always been required in every religion except one. And these are physical works, sacrifices, blood sacrifices, grain sacrifices, bowing down, praying 5 times a day, so on and so forth. As I study these things, and again, remember, I said this prayer and prayed to God and said, I'm not turning my back on you. I want to know the truth. That is my quest, to know the truth and not just fall back on the fact that this is what I was told and this is what I was raised on. So when I started looking and I read the Bible at that point in time, I read the whole Bible. I've read it 3 times and read through it. And it's a difficult book to read in certain parts. It is. But so are, if you read the lineage of any family, it gets a little difficult to hang in there at times. But once you get through that, the stories and what's more fascinating, if you have never picked up the Bible, if you haven't picked up it in a long time, you need to, because everything that you're hearing about now has existed then. The same players that are in the Bible are in play now. Same ones. You're going to hear names that you hear on the news that are in these books. Whether you believe that God wrote those or not, they're in those books from thousands of years ago. And that's pretty fascinating alone. But when we look at Judaism, and I believe that Judaism is my heritage, I believe that is my lineage. Jesus was Jewish, and I believe that Christians come from the Jewish religion. Now, we may not, yes, Christ in my belief system and what the Bible says, that Jesus died for all men, Jews and non-Jews. And we aren't required to worship in the way and follow the customs and the rituals that the Jews practice. But still, I believe that the faith and the covenant that we fall under comes from Abraham. And there's an interesting part in the Bible. I'm not going to go through scripture specifically because I'd have to have my Bible out here in front of me, and I don't have it. I wanted to make this a short conversation to intrigue you, so we'll have another longer one. But there's a a part in the New Testament where it talks about the covenant with Abraham, and this was an incredible covenant. There wasn't sacrifice that was required. It was a covenant of love and a covenant of freedom. And then when Moses was in play, this is in the Old Testament, there was a new covenant, and that covenant consisted of laws, written laws and oral laws. And those laws are very specific. You do this wrong, you're going to have to do that. You do that wrong, you're going to have to do that. Blood sacrifices are a part of that, and so are grain sacrifices and so on and so forth. This is the bottom line. This is ultimately what I saw. The scripture that I'm talking about, the particular one where it talks about the blessing of Abraham, this is the New Testament. It describes the covenant with Moses as a curse, and it describes the covenant with Abraham as a blessing. And the reason it was a curse with Moses is because of the requirements that didn't exist before that now existed when it came to your sin being measured and the intensity of the price that you had to pay, whether it be blood sacrifice, grain sacrifice, any other oral and written laws that they had that you had to follow. And this was for a specific reason, I believe, because it had to keep the Jewish culture in line, because it needed that purity in order for the Messiah to come through that lineage. Literally, the Jewish culture is the chariot of the Messiah, and they carried that lineage throughout the history and through the birth of Christ. And that's why now, as I've said before, the Jewish people that I know that are good, they are great. And when they're not good, they're really bad, or they're led astray. It's very bad. And it's very detrimental, not only to their families and the Jewish community, but to the community around them, because they are such a powerful group of people. And Satan knows that. And that's why he's played them from the very beginning, because he is trying to be God. And so he plays this game because he knows that's where the lineage of the Messiah would come from. And it's a closed community, so it's very easy to measure what's important in the Jewish community. Education, family, tradition, the cultures and the history and the different rituals, all very, very important in the Jewish community. And they're able to maintain that high level of education and close contact with the rituals and things, because they're not a community like Christians where they're going out trying to recruit people. It's a very closed family group. Now, bottom line, I know I'm making this way too long. I believe that when Jesus, the lineage of Jesus came through and he walked on this earth, he walked as a whisper, not as a commander. And he walked quietly and he walked humbly. And that was not what I believe that the religious leaders, the Sadducees and the Pharisees in the Jewish community at that point in time in Israel, that is not what they were looking for in a Messiah. And I believe that what occurred was that this whisper came, and he came into the world and paid the ultimate blood sacrifice. It was God born of a man through a virgin, and was born and walked on this earth for a period of time, set things in standards in play, was tempted, denied those temptations, and was the ultimate blood sacrifice. Literally, God played the ultimate, not trick on Satan. It wasn't that he tricked him. It's that he carried out I would like to call it more like a covert intel mission, where he came into the world, lived a meek life, paid the blood sacrifice when he could have had the power to destroy everything, paid the blood sacrifice and opened up the path to knowing God to everyone that identifies that and makes that commitment, accepts that as the blood sacrifice, and moves forward in the relationship with God. It eliminates the need for elders. It eliminates the need for, and I wouldn't say it eliminates the need for rabbis and preachers, but you don't need to be told what to believe or how to be. You can actually have the relationship with God. You don't have to go through somebody else to pray for you. You go directly to God and you pray for him, to him, because the sacrifice has been made already. Remember, before you had the sacrifices, you did this wrong, you had to do this. You did that wrong, you had to do that. When the ultimate blood sacrifice was paid, you don't have to do that anymore. And it took the power and the sting away from Satan. However, what happened was his ability, because he still believes he's going to be God one day, his ability to manipulate became more refined throughout the years. And Christ came into the world for a period of time, made the sacrifice, and left, and Satan is still here. And he's still here deceiving. I think it was difficult for the Pharisees and the Sadducees to buy into this because they were the chosen ones. And I think, my opinion, after reading and researching, is that their understanding of what the chosen ones were actually for, and there may be more to it, I'm maybe simplifying this, but as the chariots to bring the lineage of the Savior through time and space to get around the ultimate liar, the father of all lies, Satan himself, it wasn't what they had planned. I don't know what they envisioned, but I could imagine if you were chosen and you were saying you were enslaved and you were browbeaten and had your country taken away from you, that you would be looking for a Superman type of Messiah to come and rescue you and put you at the top of the heap. And so when that doesn't happen and you're told that the Messiah came and he didn't put you at the top of the heap, he didn't come in and fly in like Superman, he came in and opened up salvation to all mankind, that wouldn't go over too well for people who were in a political hierarchy of religion. And these Sadducees and Pharisees, look at Saul in the Bible, in the New Testament. He's a very religious, very aggressive individual. And we look at politics and religious leaders now, it was no different then than it is now. So the Messiah came, paid the price, and went out the same way that he came into the world. Not with a command that you will do this, but with a whisper, you now have the opportunity. That's why this show tonight and this conversation that I had earlier really hit home, and that's why I'm telling you this. Because America is the same way. You are going to have the opportunity to be whatever you want. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be harder. It doesn't mean that guy's going to be, that you're going to be ahead of that guy over there, or because you have dark skin, you're going to get this many points to get ahead of that guy. It doesn't mean any of that. Opportunity means that if you decide to be something, you have there is an ability for you to set out to do that. And if you continue to work towards it, you have the ability to achieve it. Well, this is where I think the great split between Christians and Jews actually comes from. Yes, Peter and Paul, and they were witnesses to the different groups. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is the way that they look at this Messiah, the way that they look at and understand what a sacrifice was and what it was for. And I believe that is why, when we look at history, that Jesus, to a large extent, was not accepted as a Messiah by the Jewish people. That's what I believe. And again, the thing that really brought me down this road was that I looked at, as I said before, all the religions, and there was only one that didn't say you had to do this many things or you had to believe this way or you just die and you go into the ground. It said you and the feeling that you have inside to know and understand your creator, that is possible. And you can do it on an individual basis without anybody else interceding for you, because there's only one person that needs to do that. And literally God himself became a man and paid that price. And what's interesting is, out of all the religions that I look at, faith is the hardest thing. It's way harder than, you will pray 5 times a day, or you will make this sacrifice, or you will read this, or whatever it has to do with whatever the standards are and the rules and regulations. Just simply being told, if you pray to God and say, I believe in you, I want to spend my life with you, I want to get to know you more, and I believe in the blood sacrifice, that you became a man and that you paid the ultimate sacrifice for me, and to get now the relationship with you is this has been paid. This debt has been paid. The sacrifice was made. And I don't have to sacrifice anymore. I just have to believe in that sacrifice. And I have to confess, that I'm not a perfect person. Confess to God that you are a sinner. And why are you doing that? And I know that sounds religious, but none of this stuff is religious for me. That's the other thing. I know I'm going to get emails from people saying, you just spent like 20, 30 minutes talking about religion. It's not about religion. For me, it's about truth, and it's about preparation and what I'm here for. Like I said before, this is like boot camp. I'm not going to die not having explored this. And it's not religion. The instinctual thing inside of you is not religion. It's instinct. And it's why you're here. It's been twisted into our brains to believe this is a quote unquote religion. But it's really not religion. It's the mission. It is why you're here. Like a lot of the times in the military, people get hell-bent in their brain because it's a deployment. But they forget that there is a mission involved in the deployment. And I always felt like when I thought about deployment, if I thought about a mission, it made a lot more sense. Why we're here, why we're doing these things, what possibly could be the reason. And a lot of people forget that when they're on deployment. They get upset and they get lonely and they get pissed off and they're like, we're not doing anything. But they don't understand that they forget that it's a mission. They're being deployed on a mission. And when you focus on that, it changes everything. We have a mission here. I believe the mission is to prove that we can be trained, trusted, that we won't quit. It is to understand and seek out and understand as much as possible the Creator. And I'm a Christian. I believe that the blood sacrifice was made for my sins, and I have confessed those sins, and I have taken it upon myself to ask the Lord to accept me, and that I accept and believe in his blood sacrifice. And that's the way I see it. And I think when we look at Judaism and the way that the Messiah came through, it all made perfect sense for me. When I read it and I saw it, and I saw how Judaism has changed throughout the years, where those sacrifices meant less, and there's still a lot of the oral laws and certain things that different groups of Jewish people do, but by and large, the ultimate sacrifice was made, and a lot of those things drifted away. And you have to ask yourself, if they were important, why did they drift away? I believe they drifted away because the sacrifice was made. Now, I'd love to hear what you think about this. And if you were confused by what I said, it's clear in my mind, as I always say that. But I'm trying to do this real time when I'm sitting here and I'm not having a conversation with somebody. I'm looking at a computer screen as it scrolls by and records. So it may not be as clear as I would like. I didn't prepare for this. I didn't write anything down. I'm just telling you exactly how I feel and how I got to that feeling. And I can have a much more in-depth conversation about this sometime. But that's what I believe. And why did I get on this whole subject today? Well, you know, I'm going to end the show when I say that. This is why. As I've been watching the RNC convention over the past 2 days, we still have several days to go, and I'm just blown away by it. But when you compare it to the DNC and their convention from last week, which was like a cable access college show, it was not God-centered. They took God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. You didn't see patriotic stuff. You didn't even hear the reality about the empowerment and the strength of the people. You heard about problems. You heard about taxes. You heard about how bad Donald Trump was and about how this group is victimized and that group is oppressed. What you're seeing this week is you're seeing the reality of what America is. Opportunity, freedom, and the celebration of the exceptional people that we are in America. Thank you, Donald Trump. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here. On my way to Chicago.